Alikia,
Uhuru.
are you fit to go live right now?
Yeah, well, Dr. Kelly is doing it, but we're about to go live.
We are live, comrades.
Okay.
Africa, we are winning. Shout Uhuru for our freedom. We are winning. We'll dance and sing songs when revolution's won. We are winning. Africa's best. Strong. Patrice Lumumba's life won't be in vain. We are winning. Keep up the work in Marcus Garvey's name. We are winning. Independent and free is what we will be. We are winning. Africa will bask in our victory. We are winning. Long live the liberation of our African nation. Freedom to organization. Socialist world, our creation. 1 billion strong, yes, we are one. We are winning.
Uhuru, Uhuru, thank you so much for listening to that, for playing that powerful, wonderful, awesome song. And welcome everyone to the 14th annual conference of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And I'm going to again say that name because our title says everything about who we are and our principles and what we stand for. Again, we are the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And these are very profound times in which we are navigating through, but we are determined to win. This conference has been set up somewhat differently than our previous conferences because yesterday we had the awesome pleasure of supporting the Black Power Blueprint and seeing so much of the work that the Uhuru movement is advancing under the leadership of Amalia Yeshitela and through the African People's Socialist Party and all of our comrades who are working to support these projects. It was dynamic, it was awesome. I invite everyone to please look at those videos from yesterday, because this is about theory in action. And this will also certainly explain why the government, the United States government under the Democrats, under the Biden administration, is coming down so hard on the chairperson of the Black is Back Coalition, the founder of the African People's Socialist Party, and the founder of the Uhuru movement, Amalia Yeshitela, and our comrades within the Uhuru movement. And I want people to understand this clearly. They are seeking to put him in prison for 10 to 15 years for speaking out and speaking up and for being the strong and bold revolutionary that he has always been. And there's been a history of them doing this to every Black person, bar none. Every single time we make a stance for self-determination, we've had this government come down hard on us and criminalize everything that we did. I just want to go over a couple of very, very important housekeeping things that we need to be very aware of, because this is not the usual conference in which we've had allowed like 2 days to do presentations. We are going to do these presentations within 1 day. And as a result, we have to be very disciplined with the time. So I'm just going to ask the presenters to please be very mindful of that, and we will be strict in keeping with the time. And we know that many of the things that we are going to discuss, we know that they need a broader discussion, and we certainly do plan to provide for that. But within this within these presentations today, we just want to give a clear message that even though we have come under attack, and be clear about this, you attack one, you attack all. But it is definitely the chair of the Black is Back Coalition who is under attack, and we are members of the Black is Back Coalition, which means that attack is directly on us as well. But we felt it was so important to show all of the work that we continue to do, because that's what being Black is in this country. We can't even specialize in problems. We have to do that. We have to be ready. We have to be prepared. And yes, they're going to attack us as they're doing now, but that don't stop us. And that is such an important and a clear message that we felt so necessary to give. And also, before going any further, I just want to say that I had planned to be in St. Louis. I was looking so forward to that. I had made my reservations and I had to cancel them at the very last minute. In fact, I had to cancel them on the day that I was planning to fly out. And that is because a medical emergency had presented itself pertaining to a very close family member of mine. And I was in the emergency room with him the night before and still thought that I could come out and fly out. But when I was talking to the doctors and I saw that they were waiting for test results to come back, I said to myself, I have to be here, especially if they got some kind of news that would have been overwhelming for them, because it is so important. And this is one of the missions of the healthcare working group. It is so important for us to be there for our people in them places and to help them navigate through the various situations that they might come through, and to also get our people to understand that what they call science is what they call science. And just because they say they can't cure something or they can't do something, it doesn't mean there is no cure. It just means they don't know what to do. And this is certainly one of the many, many, many problems of science under colonialism and what they call medicine under colonialism. So I just wanted to make sure that I was there. And I'm glad to say that he is doing well. And I'm so glad that he's allowing me to be a part of his healing journey. So again, I just wanted to say, comrades, I wish so much I could be in the room with you. And I was trying to transport myself yesterday too. I was like, maybe I can come through the Zoom and be there in St. Louis and get back in New Jersey, but it didn't work out like that. But we are going to move the program along. Again, we want to thank everybody for participating. All of you are in the room in St. Louis. We appreciate the work that you do, and we also appreciate the work of our coalition members. It's just an honor to work with the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And for those of you who are not yet members, get on board. Next, we are going to, speaking of the members of the Black is Back Coalition, it gives me a great pleasure. I'm honored to present this next person, this next fearless warrior, Ilikia Ngoma. Her title is the secretary of the Black is Back Coalition, but she is so much more than that. I call her the Secretary General. Nobody has disputed that. The work that she puts into this movement is just, it is just so appreciated. And we would not be able to function without people like her working behind the scenes and even working in the front when they need to. And she's also she's a musician. She is the writer of the African Liberation fight song that we just heard. And she also is a reporter. She writes for the Burning Spear newspaper. She is our Haiti correspondent as well, in that she helps to keep us abreast of issues going on with Haiti. She's also a member of the African People's Socialist Party. Everyone is again, I'm just honored to introduce Sister Ilikia Ngoma, and she will be introducing the rest of the steering committee. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Vice Chair Lisa Davis. As was said, my name is Ilikia Ngoma, the Secretary of the Black is Back Coalition. And I just want to, echo the Vice Chair's thanks to everybody who is participating with us this weekend, especially those who are participating with us right now. And we'll go straight into this PowerPoint, which shows the Black is Back Coalition Steering Committee. The Black is Back Coalition is currently made up of 18 different Black organizations, which represent different ideologies and, political views, but are united around our principles of unity. And of course, the 19-point platform, the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination. Next slide, please. So we will begin with the coordinating committee, which is responsible for the day-to-day work of the coalition. Next slide. First, we have Omali Ishatella, who is the chair of the Black is Back Coalition, and the chairman and the representative of the African People's Socialist Party, which he is the chairman of as well. Next slide. Vice chair, we have Sister Lisa Davis, who is also the chair of the Healthcare Working Group. Next slide. We have myself, Alikia Ngoma, the secretary. Next slide. Ikinge Mayele, who is the logistics coordinator. And so these are the forces that make up that are responsible for the day-to-day work of the coalition. The next forces are the steering committee, who represent the various organizations that make up the coalition, and also the chairs of the working groups of the coalition. Next slide. We have Dr. Masamela Odom, who is the international president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and its representative in the steering committee. He is also the chair of the Black Community Control of the Police Working Group. Next slide. Sister Betty Davis, who represents the New Abolitionist Movement and is also the chair of the Education Working Group. Next slide. Brother Ralph Pointer, who represents the Lynn Stewart organization and is the chair of the Free All Political Prisoners Working Group. Next slide. Brother Jamu Baraka, who represents the Black Alliance for Peace. Next, we have Brother Daoud Khalik, who represents Reparations United Front and is the chair of the Reparations Working Group. Next slide. Sister Belinda Parker Brown, who is the CEO of the Louisiana United International Incorporated and its representative in the steering committee. Next slide. Reverend Edward Pinkney, who is the president of the Black Autonomy Network Community Organization and its organizational representative in the steering committee. Next slide. Jihad Abdulmamit, who represents Jericho Movement. Next slide. Sister Nellie Bailey, who represents the Harlem Anti-War Coalition. Next slide. Yejide Orinmila, who is the president of the African National Women's Organization and its representative on the steering committee. Next slide. Brother Life Malcolm, who represents the Black People's Advancement and Defense Organization. Next slide. Zaki Barudi, the President General of the Universal African Peoples Organization and its representative on the steering committee. Next slide. We have the Joko Collective, which is represented by Sister Tasha Thomas, Brother Yusuf Imhotep, and Sister Jamila Feemster. Next slide. Amanda Wallace, who represents Operation Stop CPS as an organizational member of the Black is Back. Next slide. Brother Paul Pumphrey, the co-founder of Friends of the Congo and its a representative of that organization. Next slide. We have Robert Ward Williams, who represents the Black Panther Party San Diego as an organizational member. Next slide. Brother Cam Howard, who represents Reparations United as an organizational member of the Black is Back Coalition. Next slide. And in memoriam, we remember Brother Glenn Ford, who was a founding member of the Black is Back Coalition. We say long live Glenn Ford. Next slide. As well as long live Dr. Zena Crenshaw Logo, who has participated with us through the Louisiana United International, including participating at many of our coalition events. She also became a member. So long live Dr. Zena Crenshaw Logo. Next slide. So, organizations are being called to join the Black is Back Coalition for social justice, peace, and reparations. If you go to blackisbackcoalition.org, you read our principles of unity, you read our national Black political agenda for self-determination, you unite with all of the principles and all of the points of the 19-point platform, then it is your place to be amongst the steering committee and, make your organizational membership at blackisbackcoalition.org. Uhuru, thank you. So next, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for this conference, which is Chairman Omali Ishitella, the leadership of the Black is Back Coalition. Omali Ishitella is the founder and chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and chair of the Black is Back Coalition. The chairman is a veteran of the Black Revolution of the 60s, the leader of the Uhuru movement, and the chairman of the African Socialist International. He is also a political theoretician and the founder of the Burning Spear newspaper. Chairman Omali Ishitella is the author of many books, including An Uneasy Equilibrium, The African Revolution versus Parasitic Capitalism, Vanguard, The Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution, and also the latest book, The Verdict is in, Reparations Now, a reprint, a 40-year anniversary reprint that reports on the World Tribunal on Reparations held by the African People's Socialist Party. So Chairman Omali Ishitella will be speaking to the theme of the conference, which is Not One Step Backwards, FBI Attacks Black Liberation Movement Again. Drop the charges now. Uhuru, Chairman Omali Ishitella.
Vice President Lisa Davis, and to all of the members of this, of the Black is Back Steering Committee. It's an extraordinary array of men and women who played critical roles in the struggle of our people and who stand now in the forefront of that struggle. No longer as individuals or individual organizations, but as a part of a collective barrier standing between our oppressors and the masses of our people. I have to acknowledge the presence again of the family and friends of Mafunde Lake, who was a political prisoner for much of his life, and ultimately murdered by the United States government in the Alabama prison system. And they have come here to St. Louis to participate in the 14th Annual National Conference of the Black is Back Coalition. That is traditionally a two-day conference that opened on yesterday, sharing much of the space with the Black Power Blueprint program that has initiated housing and workforce development programs for African people immediately associated with the colonial prison system, but it's much broader than that. And I have to acknowledge them because they may have to get up sometime and get back on the bus going to Birmingham, Alabama again. And you may ask me, why the hell would somebody want to go to Birmingham, Alabama? But that's what people ask me when I come to St. Louis, why the hell would I? And I'm reminded of a joke we used to have a long time ago during the Civil Rights Movement. It's about busloads of African people, some leaving the South, heading north, trying to get away, and some leaving the North, heading south because of what they have found there. And as the buses cross the Mason-Dixon line, the passengers in both buses going in both directions and waving to the other one saying, go back. Yeah, so the fact of the matter is Malcolm X said once, as long as you're south, of the Canadian border, you're down south. And actually, he could have extended the southern borders as it relates to the oppression of African people a much greater distance. So I want to just acknowledge them, and I want everybody here, if you don't mind, what your brothers and sisters, Carolyn Lake, the widow of Mafunde Lake, his children, Asada Shakur Lake, Maya Lake, Clinton, and Clinton's wife, Vanessa. Did I get that right, Vanessa? All right. And then there's the Redbone, Alabama Redbone, but I don't see her. I'm Sister Barbara. Are you there someplace? Right there. And did I miss anybody from, oh, Makeda. Yes, Makeda, Uhuru. So these are just stalwart, really, I can't overstate the significance. I mean, you may not have heard of Mafunde Lake, many of you who are participating in this meeting on today, because he was down in the hellhole in Alabama. And folk don't know too much about the southern prison system, because it was so profoundly and deeply oppressive that the sun didn't shine there much. And while you might have heard about the magnificent and heroic struggles of African people, like in California, New York, and some of these other places, even Illinois, I mean, extraordinary struggles. Much of the oppression of African people in the prison system in Alabama that came almost immediately and directly out of convict leasing, right? Which it was characterized by some as worse than slavery. This is what the Southern prison system immediately had its origin in. And the fact of the matter is, even prisons in Illinois and in Missouri and other places like that got their foundation from what was happening to Africans and to Mafunde Lake down in Alabama. So I just wanted to acknowledge them. And Mafunde was an extraordinary heroic forces. He built Inmates for Action, and they weren't playing, they meant action. You know, in Alabama, I can't overstate the significance of that. So I've spoken too long. I know that people who are in charge of this program, they respect the elders so much that they're not throwing things at me yet. But I know I've said I've spoken too long. I'm to speak. Uhuru, yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're scheduled for like 30 minutes for this section to speak.
Okay, see, that's the vice chair is on the case, right? Yeah, so I wanted to just say those things. These are people who are dear to our hearts, and for a number of reasons. And we did a lot of work together. And Mafunde was the primary organizer for the African National Prison Organization that we built together, traveled throughout this country, building an organization to deal with this question of African people in prison. We had a slogan that Africans are a nation behind bars, right? And that's what we've lived with all this time. Our history in this country, we're not a group that came here escaping bars. We're not a group that came here looking for a better way of life. We're a group that were brought here at gunpoint. And I think it's really important to make that statement. We were brought here at gunpoint. And we lost a better way of life as a consequence of having been brought here in chains. Everything that we talk about in terms of courts and justice were imposed on us by those who brought us here at gunpoint. And the gunpoint, the ones who enslaved us are the ones who made the laws that justified our enslavement. And everything that we've been doing since then to try to get out of slavery has had to go against those who made laws that made it necessary for us to be enslaved. So we are a group of people, we don't have any illusions about that. So we're saying here, and that takes us to the theme of this conference. This is an annual conference that this coalition has had. This is the 14th annual conference, and that's a statement in of itself. That's a statement in of itself. because they did such a horrible assault on the Black liberation movement. This movement was crushed by the government. When I say the government, I didn't say our government, I said the government. I'm talking about the colonial government crushed this movement. And part of the process of crushing the movement was deepening the divisions between African groups and people, making everybody suspicious of everybody else. Couldn't trust the other organizations and things like that. And this coalition ultimately is a response to that in so many ways. We had to overcome a tremendous amount of things, and not just some ideas in our head. Like somebody comes up with this fanciful, bogus thing about, I forgot what this thing is, that some magic letter or something that was written, a white man comes from someplace and then teach how to control Black. What was it called? The Willie Lynch myth. But the fact of the matter is, it was not some strategy by some clever white man. Pit the light skin against the dark skin, the tall against the short, the ugly against the pretty, and all this kind of stuff that they come up with. It was white men, mostly with guns, and then feminism, white feminism created a movement so they could participate too. So it was people with guns in our communities. And if it were enough, just this Willie Lynch thing to do it, they wouldn't have to have a police on every block that we live on. They wouldn't have to have a George Floyd. Wouldn't be a George Floyd. They wouldn't need a George Floyd. It's the colonial state that's been responsible for our situation. So the theme here, not one step backwards, not one step backwards. FBI attacks the Black liberation movement again. Drop the charges now. And I'm going to read a call that was put forth by this coalition, endorsed, supported, voted on by this steering committee to this conference that we're doing on today, the 14th annual conference, the 14th extraordinary conference representing the fact that we have pulled together all of these forces again, who the government worked so hard to divide and keep us from being able to be united. In fact, that was the ongoing thing, that you can't unite Black people, you can't be united, et cetera, et cetera. 14 years later, we're saying not only can we be united, but we're saying not one step backwards. Not going back to that old time shuffling, handkerchief head, butt kissing role anymore. We're not doing that anymore. So there are not enough FBI attacks that they can do. No more. So this is the call. On July 29, 2022, the US government initiated a watershed assault on the African Revolution headquartered in the US. It was an attack on the home of the chairman of the Black is Back Coalition, Omali Yeshitela, who is also the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party and leader of the International Uhuru Movement. I also need to acknowledge, I thought I saw Onazane Yeshitela walk into this building. Can I see you if you're there? Oh, there she is in the back. I wanted to acknowledge her because on yesterday, we talked so much about the Black Power Blueprint, this incredible manifestation of the philosophy of African internationalism leading the struggle to be free. We've always said that a philosophy ideology is meaningless if it's not something that can be implemented in the real world. You know, it's just a discussion, otherwise, just talking, right? And the architect, the author of so much of this has been Onazane Yeshitela, who is the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, and who was also in my home, our home, on July 29, 2022, when we were attacked by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, by their government. So this attack went beyond the harassment the anti-imperialist and Black liberation movement have come to expect from the United States government, when its class, peace, and domestic colonial domination are challenged. The July 29th attack on the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement are akin to the massive, murderous attack that centered on the Black Panther Party, but targeted the liberation movement of the 1960s as a whole. On July 29th, 2022, the FBI military assault on the home of Chairman Omali Yeshitela in St. Louis, Missouri was accompanied by an attack on 6 other homes and properties associated with the Uhuru movement in 2 states. Armored vehicles, stun grenades, militarily attired FBI troops with assault weapons using battering rams, drones, and other means to destroy and steal property, temporarily take a radio station based in the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, off the air, break down every door in the building, and raid the party's archives. All of this was done with the subsequent spurious claim that the work being led by Chairman Omali in opposition to the US-initiated Ukraine war, the work done by the Uhuru movement to collect signatures for the United Nations charging the United States with violation of the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment for the Crime of Genocide, along with the 2017 and 2019 electoral campaigns in St. Petersburg, Florida, calling for reparations and Black community control of the police, were done in the employ of Russian interests. Hand me that book, please. I just wanted to hold this up. This is something that was just published a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. It is a reprint with additional testimony from other statements from a tribunal that the African People's Socialist Party organized for November 13th, if I'm not mistaken, in Brooklyn, New York. And this was a tribunal reparations to African people in the United States. For the first time in history where there was an actual calculation, an actual quantification of the amount of value that has been stolen from Black people at gunpoint in this country, Birmingham being one of the places where much of it was centered. And this book, this tribunal that we did before an international panel of jurors, is a tribunal that was based on international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. That was in 1982. But the US government is now saying that we were doing something in 2000 something based on the fact that we employed by Russians to take out the demand, the struggle of the United States before of the World Court for committing genocide against African people. They say we were in the employ of Russian interests. And they claimed that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and at the time 3 other members of the Uhuru movement were Russian agents. And that included Akile Nai, who is the person presiding over this process of letting the world see what we're doing now. That included Jesse Neville, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and is responsible for their being in existence today, even as we have this discussion in 141 cities of the United States, white people who are working for Black reparations. That includes Penny Hess, who is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And these are 2 people who were indicted. And as Comrade Penny mentioned in a meeting that we had yesterday on the first day, we have a situation where historically African people, hundreds and hundreds of African people have been lynched in this country. White women have been participating in it as well. I call them feminists because these are people who want the same rights as white men have under colonialism. They're not talking about destroying colonialism. They want the same rights, and that's the rights to be lynchers and to be on the police department, FBI, Justice Department, military, and all these other kinds of things. And there has never been a white person indicted for doing any of those things to Black people. But the first time a white person works under the leadership of Black people to end that kind of stuff, they get indicted. That's a powerful statement. That's a powerful statement. So, and I'm going to stop this and just read this thing. I see eyes glazing over. They claimed that Chairman Amali Shatella and at the time 3 other members of the Uhuru movement were Russian agents. And the thing is, their concern is that they were Black agents. Their concern is that for the first time, there's Black power in white face working in the white community. Ain't that something? And so, you know, we have to deal with that all the time, don't we? I just saw some Negro out of Michigan, I think, whose name is James, is it James Jones? I forgot his name. He's a representative in the Congress who just pushed forth some kind of legislation or bill calling for the United States government to be concerned about Congo. Because so much of what we need in Congo, this is what they're saying, all of the resources in Congo that's needed by this country is a national security question for the United States. How in the hell does a national security interest of the United States get in the ground in the Congo? That's a hell of a thing. The national security interest of the United States was in the Congo when that's why they were coming in and getting us. It was in their national security interest to have us working in Birmingham, Alabama. So anyway, I said I wasn't going to do that. This spurious charge is based on the racist presumption that African people do not have agency, that some other force, presumably white, must be telling African people of our reality, although it is a reality we have experienced since the first attack on Africa brought us to these shores against our will. That's the only reason we can talk about reparations, by the way, is because Africa came under attack. It's not like we volunteered to get here, right? Yeah. So on April 18, 2023, some 9 months after the initial military assault, Chairman Amali and 2 other members of the Uhuru movement were indicted by the US Justice Department. And on May 2nd and 8th, went before a judge in Tampa at a federal court where they were hobbled in leg irons, handcuffed, fingerprinted, placed in holding cells, and finally released on restricted bail that required relinquishment of passports, any personal weapons, weekly reports to a supervising officer, permission to travel beyond the specific districts in Florida and Missouri, and visits by supervising officers to their homes at will. We'll show you, nigga. We'll show you. You understand? So put leg irons. You got me in leg irons. Yeah, like I'm going to escape, right? I'm going to do something. I'm going to put me in leg irons, right? Shackles. Currently, they got some things like that in the museum, and is that in Montgomery, where they have the slave museum or something like that? You know, they got copies of those same kinds of irons. They put them on a white woman too. They put them on Penny Hess. They put them on white. They put them on Jesse Neville. Oh yeah, act like one, you be one. Yeah. So yeah, treat you like that, right? That'll learn you. They used to have a special name for white people who showed some kind of solidarity to African people. Y'all remember that? What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? I ain't never heard nobody call them an in lover. They ain't said, you in lover, you. I did that. I will deal with you in lover. So currently they're facing up to 15 years in prison on these fabricated charges. Surely this is an enhanced attack on our struggle for happiness, dignity, and the return of the values stolen from our people and our Africa over the last few centuries. The attacks go further. They include the preemptive assault on the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, where on July 2nd, just 27 days before the 2-state pre-dawn raids, a man using a military-grade flamethrower torched in broad daylight the 15 by 25-foot red, black, and green flag proudly flying from a 50-foot flagpole a September break-in of a vehicle driven by an Uhuru member chauffeuring Chairman Omali that resulted in the theft of the driver's computer and passport from the back floor of an SUV that had tinted windows in Oakland, California. Across the street from the St. Louis home that was attacked on July 29th, a church that was under contract for purchase by the Uhuru movement to house some of the movement's more than 50 anti-colonial community programs, such as what you saw on yesterday, was torched before the purchase could be completed. In addition, several banks with whom the Uhuru movement has done business for years have suddenly initiated sanctions against the party and movement as if they are a hostile foreign government against whom such actions by the US have now become common. What is going on? This is the question before us as the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations is moving to convene our 14th annual conference. Ours is a remarkable coalition that has served to reconstitute a Black liberation movement that was militarily destroyed in the 1960s by assassinations. In Chicago, they murdered Fred. Fred Hampton died in Chicago. He did not commit suicide. He was only 21 years old. There's no evidence that he had high blood pressure or any of those kinds of things that might bring somebody to a sudden death. Pre-COVID, they murdered Fred Hampton. They came at 4 o'clock in the morning on West Monroe, right there in Chicago, and killed him after they had drugged him first so that he would be asleep and could not awaken when they broke into his house. This is what they did to Fred Hampton there. So we're talking about a remarkable coalition that has served to reconstitute a Black liberation movement that was militarily destroyed in the 1960s by assassinations, targeted and mass jailing, slander, and an assortment of debilitating acts that we are finally overcoming thanks to the founding and work of the Black is Back Coalition. There was a brother, his name was Nelson Peary, I think it was. He was out of Michigan, who headed an organization that believed that African people constituted a separate nation in this country. And he was a pretty successful organizer. And at one of their conventions, he was on the platform before hundreds of people in the audience. And the FBI marched into that meeting and arrested him on the platform for non-payment child support payment. This is the kind of stuff, the kind of slander, they besmirch you, destroy your reputation, destroy your viability before your people, for the people. So there's not much likelihood that somebody will come to defend you. Ain't that right? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? So they want to do things, and they come up with the most ridiculous, asinine, horrible things. And part of what they think does it here is that we're supposed to be working for Russians after they've done all this work to help everybody understand that the Russians are the boogeyman. And then here we are working for the Russians. And not only are we working for the Russians, we Black. And that's supposed to tell all the white people that we are dangerous too, and therefore they cannot be defended. And this is supposed to tell them that it's all right for us to keep them from being free, because for them from having free speech, attack them on the free speech question. It's okay to do that, because these are some Black people who are against the US government, who are working with the Russians, who believe that Black people are independent, should be an independent, separate nation. All the white people are supposed to be opposed to that. And so when they come to get your free speech, they don't come to get the free speech of the most prominent, well-liked white people. They come to get the free speech. They target the free speech rights of everybody at the most serious contradiction that they have to deal with, that they have to suppress in order to keep everybody else enslaved. There is no such thing in the Constitution of the United States as a Uhuru right to free speech. There's no such thing in the Constitution of the United States as Omali used to tell freedom of speech. It's just freedom of speech. And if you are sucker enough to allow them to attack free speech, because they call it Omali used to tell them, free speech because they call it the Uhuru movement. What you've just done is sacrifice free speech, period. And they attack us because we out in front. And the Black struggle has always been out in front because of the conditions of Black people put us out in front. Because every time we move, it shakes the entire foundation of the social system. So if you get that which is out front, then we are the ones that stand between the colonial state power and the masses of the people in this country. Black people have been responsible for the definition of freedom in this country. Yeah. Everything that has been called freedom, all the rights related to freedom has come as a consequence of the struggle of Black people in this country. Right. And that's despite the fabricated history that has covered that up. So if you allow them to get away with this, then that's why even when people talk about Trump, I ain't defending Trump, but what I am saying is don't make the mistake of believing that they can attack just because you don't like Trump. Okay, let them attack free speech. You crazy as hell. You can't let them attack that based on the fact that you don't like him. And Trump is a horrible person, but Trump didn't put 100,000 police in the streets of our community. Biden did that. You didn't know that. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to do that. So we have fully entered a new moment in history where the colonial mode of production is being called into, is being challenged by struggles of the oppressed peoples globally. This has already resulted in a profound change in the political and economic configuration of the world. That is driving the colonial powers, currently led by the shaky US hegemon, into a frenzied crisis. The social cohesion of the United States is rapidly rending, fabricated on a foundation of colonialism, where every aspect of existence is based on the parasitic extraction of life by settlers who forcibly ripped this land from its indigenous custodians, now consigned to concentration camps called barrios and Indian reservations. Every act of resistance to foreign domination boldly undermines the legitimacy of the so-called American project, self-proclaimed as a beacon of freedom and democracy. It is upon this stolen land base that the colonial enslavement of forcibly dispersed African people was imposed at gunpoint, depriving both Africans and the indigenous of control of the productive forces necessary for self-determination and reproduction of life. You don't talk about productive forces, production and reproduction of life, economic stuff. You know, you go to school, you go to church, all these other places, but there's never this discussion. They just have us moving subjectively off emotions and things like that, not what your material interests are. I don't like him because he could say a nigger, you know? And so what they do is say, well, don't call him nigger, call him Mr. Nigger, you understand? And so you're still living under the same circumstances, same oppression. You have somebody who's a hustler who would say, we're gonna bury the word nigger and have this thing, we're gonna bury nigger, but you didn't bury oppression. You didn't bury exploitation. You didn't bury the murderers of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You didn't bury the murderers of Fred Hampton, any of that. That's stuff that keeps you misled, misdirected, misinformed, and what have you. So what we are saying that there are basic interests that we have as a people, as a nation, who have been dispossessed, and our capacity to produce and reproduce life has been something that's been taken from us and misdirected. We still produce life. We still reproduce life, but not for us. Right. We do it for them, right. Which is why we say reparations now. Payback. Yeah. So we want all the settlers to learn how to play your own basketball, right? Sing your own songs, have your own babies, right? And do all those other kinds of things that normal human beings do for themselves. Do it for yourself. Get a job. That's what some people ask me all the time. Well, what about the white people? We say, White people just got to be just like everybody else. Take your own chances. Go out and get a damn job. Pee in the bowl, just like black people have to do to try to get a job. Get a job. That's what you do. It is upon this stolen land base that the colonial enslavement of forcibly dispersed African people was imposed at gunpoint, depriving both Africans and the indigenous of control of the productive forces necessary for self-determination and reproduction of life. The struggle of African people has always presented the most serious existential threat to the global capitalist economy originating from African colonial enslavement in Africa and every other arena of our forced dispersal. That's why I got a Negro who put in this thing about the Congo. Tell me about the Congo. I ain't in Congo. The reason I ain't in Congo because you got me in Missouri. So you oppressing me in Congo, you bring me to Missouri, and then you attacking me at 5 o'clock in the morning with flashbang grenades. So I maintain my oppression here. Even as you run away from Africa, they are telling you that there is a connection that you can run from Africa, but Africa don't run from you. And it's so ridiculous how we run from Africa, isn't it? Isn't it, sister? When you look at it, Africa didn't enslave us. Africa didn't Jim Crow us. Africa didn't lynch us. Africa didn't work and tell everything. Why are you running from Africa? You run from the ones who did that, not from Africa, right? So this is what the German revolutionary philosopher Karl Marx recognized with his observation that the development and progress of the white world stem from the imposition of a world economy, a colonial mode of production that he dismissed as the primitive accumulation, or misidentified as the primitive accumulation of capital with these words, quote, the discovery of gold and silver in America, the extirpation, enslavement, and entombment in mines of the aboriginal population, talking about the indigenous people, the beginning of the conquest and looting of the East Indies, talking about India, the turning of Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins signalized the rosy dawn of the era of capitalist accumulation, capitalist production. What all of this stands on the foundation is the colonial mode of production. Africa, the indigenous people here, India, all this stuff he's talking about, turning them into mines, they still ain't out of the damn mines, those who still survive. This is the contradiction. These idyllic proceedings are the chief mementa of primitive accumulation, he calls it. On their heels treads the commercial war of the European nations with the globe for a theater. Everything starts here with the attack on us and the other peoples. Ain't that something? The whole foundation, everything we stand on, all the culture, everything that comes from here stands on that foundation. How can you have, as a premise of law, for example, that possession is 99% of ownership? How you gonna do it? Possession is 99%. So no matter how you got it, you just got it, and therefore that's 99%. That's the law. The globe continues to be the operational theater of the capitalist system thus far. Hence, even Russia and China, countries previously pushed to the sidelines of history through the functioning of the colonial mode of production, have reemerged on the world stage fighting for their own independent interests. And although their fight continues within the existing colonial mode of production, it contributes to the fracturing of the prevailing social order. The same is true of the ongoing struggles of the peoples of the Middle East, as they call it, the Persian Gulf, South America, and our continent of Africa that was attacked by Portugal some 600 years ago as the vanguard colonial act that resulted in our forced dispersal and the emergence of a world economy for the first time in human history. For the first time in human history, there was no such thing as a world economy. People traded with each other. Africa was all this, but the world economy, an economy hooked the entire world into a single process, never existed before. This is its origin. It was the colonial mode of production. This is where capitalism comes from. There's no capitalism. You can't even imagine a capitalism without the theft of this land. You can't imagine a capitalism that without the theft of the human resources and lives of African people that went into it without control of Africa and the rest of the world. Capitalism came as a consequence. It's rest upon a foundation of our enslavement and the enslavement of the vast majority of people of the world. And the laws and other things that we're looking at have their origin in that process as well. So we recognize that. And I'm saying this is not a statement to go out and be illegal. The fact is, they come to your house at 5 o'clock in the morning, and if you're in Chicago, they'll come at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they'll kill you dead. They got armed forces all around the world threatening people everywhere. They got more several hundred military bases in Africa alone, and you include Africa and the rest of the world and what have you. So they say this is a law. If you do anything, not only if you break the law, we'll change the law when it's necessary. If you didn't break it, we'll move the goalposts. Right. So it's illegal now. It wasn't illegal when you did it, but now we just made it illegal. And use that as the basis of doing something horrible to you. So anyway, it is the same is true of the ongoing struggle of the people of the Middle East, which gets its name. What is the Middle East? How does it get to be the Middle East? What makes it that? What is the whole geographic definition of where places are? It's based on the centrality of Europe. Yeah. White people say this is it, and this is east, and this is south. If you go to Australia, by the way, the world map looks different. And because the Aussies, as they like to say, who went to that place as a prison colony from England, right, and start killing Black people there. They say the map is, they say the other people got the map upside down. You go there and south is Europe, and north up is where we are. But anyway, they're the ones. There's this whole thing about how things are positioned. Like on the map, it's the political determination that's been made and how we are designated. So anyway, all economic and political activity of the world is scrambling to find its place in this era of turbulence, erupting from the growing loss of equilibrium, tenuously tethered to an insecure colonial mode of production. Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Palestine, Nicaragua, all of Africa, and the United Nations and the United States of North America, and all the inhabitants of the U.S. prison of nations are just just representation of the global population engaged in a disadvantageous parasitic and dialectical process of life production and reproduction. This is not a new recognition by our Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. 13 years ago, in 2010, at our first national conference in St. Petersburg, Florida, just months following the coalition's creation, our adopted founding document proclaimed, 13 years ago, proclaimed, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations is an organization comprised of otherwise independent groups and institutions that fit within the general anti-imperialist self-determinist tendency of the African community. While the immediate cause of our organization has been the escalation of the US wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, we are representative of a people whose introduction to the United States and to imperialism in general has been our own experiences as victims through the attack on our African motherland and the subsequent enslavement and colonization from which we still suffer today. It has been our own historical experiences as victims of imperialism that helped to inform our views of imperialist aggression by the United States and others against the peoples of the Middle East, including Palestine and the Persian Gulf. It has been our own experiences that help us to recognize imperialist aggression by the United States and others against the people of South America, especially Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Bolivia, and the growing anti-imperialist bloc. These experiences have made us opponents of the United States and other imperialist involvement in Africa and the African world at large, especially the economic quarantine of Zimbabwe, the proxy wars in Congo, Ivory Coast, and other places, and the imposition of AFRICOM as a means to guarantee the never-ending profit that deepens the immiseration of African people. We recognize the current imperialist involvement in Africa and the African world as continuation of the initial assault on Africa. In addition, the colonization of the African continent that transformed Africa into a source of stolen labor and resources resulted in the export of African misery and colonization to the far reaches of the earth that include North and South America and the Caribbean, where Haiti continues to be a glaring example of the consequences of this relationship. In fact, the current expression of capitalist exploitation and oppression known as imperialism by some is but the development of capitalism and the relations of exploitation that were born of the first accumulation of capital stemming from our enslavement and colonization and the accompanying rape of Asia and what is now known as the Americas. This is why the Black is Back Coalition is uniquely positioned to assume a leadership role in the struggle against the current expressions of US imperialist aggression being directed against the struggling peoples of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. This is why we stand in solidarity with the Mexican people, the indigenous people of the US, and the people of Cuba and Venezuela, etc. It is because we recognize their struggle like our own, are simply efforts to reverse the verdict of imperialism that requires the vast majority of the world's peoples to live in perpetual misery and poverty for success. It is because we know that the prisons of the United States are filled with the masses of our people because US imperialism recognizes us as an internal colony. And since the formal emancipation of our people has maintained a public policy of police containment, most often with the democratic consent of the general white population. This is why the brave men and women who organized themselves and boldly struck out to win our happiness and the truth and the return of our stolen resources have been victims of character assassination, forced exile, and murder. This is why scores of such men and women now rotting in prisons or living furtive existences as hunted prey, even as the United States pleads on the world stage, pretending social equality. Having hidden this historically recognized white power behind a Black face in the then presidency of Barack Hussein Obama. Unemployment and an imposed drug economy, the ongoing theft of value through home foreclosures and other means reveal the use of our people as a reserve labor force as well as a reserve source of capital accumulation. Capital accumulation, that's what you look at all the time here in St. Louis as an example. The theft of all these properties and what have you is the reserve force. The ordinary white guy get in a pickup truck and ride through your community with his clipboard and stuff like that, writing down addresses and stuff. They don't get that property. This ain't Rockefeller. You understand? These are ordinary white guys, maybe upper working class, and may not just be upper working class, just working class. And they're out there mining when they come to your community with those pickup trucks and those clipboards. It's a reserve capital source. That's what we exist for. How many times, how many communities you live in, and you can say, Black people used to live there. Used to live there, right? Used to live there. And so economic crisis, they come and get it. You can't take your children back to where, I met your mama and we've got married in this church here. That church ain't there no more. That school ain't there no more. That hospital that we built because the government wouldn't do it, ain't there no more. All of that stuff is gone because it's also a reserve capital, a source of capital accumulation. You see what I'm saying? We have to be able to hook it all up. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm gonna put me in jail, because that's what we're doing now. We're hooking it up. Hooking it up. So we say that the police murder of our young men and the denial of any meaningful health care, all of these factors contribute to our ability to characterize our status in the United States as subjects rather than citizens. You can't allow them to call you the same thing as they call themselves. So if we are citizens and they're citizens, how do you account for the whole difference in the way we exist? How do you account for the fact of the disparity in the numbers of people locked up in these prisons? How do you account for the police killing Black people in broad daylight with knees in the neck and stuff like that? They ain't doing that to white people. If you're a citizen and you're a citizen, how the hell do you account for that? Because you can't just let the name serve to define that. And I hear African people, I'm a citizen, I was born here. And yeah, you were born here and you're lucky that unlike Mike Africa, you weren't born in a prison. You understand? You were born wherever they put you. They put you here. That's how you happen to be born here. That was a decision that was made by you or anybody else like that. So while many have been moved to protest the U.S. foreign and domestic policy agenda for a variety of reasons, the Black is Back coalition, our coalition, is motivated by a genuine hatred of imperialism that is responsible for most of the misery being experienced by the majority of the peoples within the United States and around the world. We protest the wars and injustices directed at the people of the world by U.S. imperialism. But more important, our existence represents the re-entry of our people into political life as an organized, conscious act of anti-imperialist resistance that has its basis in circumstances similar to those that have motivated the peoples of Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. It has the same material basis. I don't speak Vietnamese, but my solidarity with the Vietnamese people is recognition that they suffer from colonial domination that gave birth to this system that holds it together just like mine. If I don't know the relationship, then I finding out calling myself a citizen, I'm a dummy. You know, I say Black is beautiful, but if Black ain't always smart. Our coalition is uniquely positioned and has a special responsibility to provide leadership in the resistance against U.S. foreign and domestic policies. The fact that Obama represents the latest, most desperate ploy of imperialism by allowing the oppressor to represent him, to represent himself in the guise of the oppressed would have confused and paralyzed many opponents of imperialism if not for our intervention. You know, that's desperate. When they got a Negro to be, can you imagine a Negro becoming the president of the United States? This is the same country that lynching Black people, even as he's becoming president. Even as he's running for president, white people are attending rallies carrying guns. Remember that? Popular rally carrying guns. And this is a Negro, not a Negro named Jesse, not even a Negro named Al. This is a Negro named Barack Hussein Obama. What in the hell is going on? It makes your brain explode. They wouldn't have even, Hollywood, I'm telling you, Hollywood could not have conceived a script like that. Cole and Tyrone. Yeah. Ain't that something? That's, I mean, they just misuse us, don't they? Let's get this Negro right out there. And Barack Hussein Obama. So his name is Jewish and African and Arab. He's everything. Anyway. So we say we have not simply called for peace as much of the U.S. anti-war opposition has done. More importantly, we have been able to express solidarity with those who resist U.S. imperialism, to the victims of imperialism. We're not calling for peace on the damn plantation. Trump wanted peace. Obama wants peace. But what their peace is, if the slaves say, okay, we surrender, we ain't fighting no more, that's the peace they want. That's the peace they want. Our list of demands does not simply assume that peace and social justice can be conferred on the world by simply demanding the resources going to make imperialist war be diverted to what they call domestic use. We are opposed to imperialism itself. In other words, there ain't no payoff. You understand? Somebody using for domestic use. When in the hell, when they weren't fighting, when in the hell did they ever use the resources for Black people? So we want the war, money going to the war to go for domestic use. Put it in education, put it in school. Were they doing that before the damn war? What in the hell about this system makes you think that they're going to do that now? What we are saying, and we all want all the people who believe like that, to say all the money, this is what our coalition has said, all the billions of dollars that you're using, right, to fight in Ukraine, that's reparations money. Everybody should vote to make that money go to Black people for reparations that's being imposed. That's the deal. That gives it some meaningful kind of character. When you do that, then you unite with the oppressed peoples of the world and unite against the system, not just acting like there can be some kind of peace inside this system. Oh, now I'm gonna get a school. Are they gonna rebuild the school that they destroyed? All the schools they destroyed, right? How many schools they took down in Chicago alone? They're gonna put them back? They're gonna rescue the people who lost everything. I'm talking about children, communities who are destroyed because they destroyed those schools as among the things they did. They're gonna put that back? Hell no. We aren't talking about that kind of peace. We ain't saying that's put the money, use the money. These are what liberals like to say, that kind of stuff, you know. Use the money and for domestic use. Yeah, give it to the domestic military. Put it in the police budget. Do something like that. Anyway. Ain't that funny, man? So we say ours is a resistance for bread, peace, and Black power. Obviously, the demand for bread calls for self-serving employment that contributes to the development of our community and a return of all the recently stolen resources due to our people from U.S. actions that accompanied and followed the catastrophe of Katrina and other Gulf region weather systems. We want restitution and repair for the subprime mortgage fraud that resulted in the greatest theft of African wealth since slavery. But the demand for bread also means reparations for all the stolen wealth that has accumulated to the coffers of US imperialists from slavery up to now, up to this moment, up to right now as we're having this discussion. I want to be paid. I want the money that they use for them flashbang grenades in my house. I want the money from that. I want the money for the armored vehicles that they pulled up in front of my house to terrorize my. I want every damn thing. I want it all back. It belongs to us. Yeah. So we say, nor should the demand for peace be interpreted as an imperialist peace, the type of peace that the slave master can appreciate as long as the slaves are not resisting and the system of slavery goes unchallenged. When we say peace, we mean peace that accompanies social justice, a peace that can only come through fierce, uncompromising resistance designed to overturn the relationship between the oppressed and the oppressor. Is there any wonder that a Black liberation movement under the influence of our coalition would come under attack by the colonial powers of the United States? Coalition Vice Chair Comrade Lisa Davis has spoken proudly of our coalition with these words that should inspire us all to attend our upcoming annual national conference and advance the struggle the colonial powers are so desperately attempting to derail. And this is from Lisa Davis. Uhuru, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations stands in complete solidarity with our falsely accused comrades and calls for the government to immediately drop the charges against the Uhuru Three. We are proud of the work that this coalition under the leadership of our chairman, from our 19-point platform for Black self-determination to our electoral campaign schools, demonstrating how to put revolutionary issues on the ballot. to the mission of our working groups and coalition members. We have created a body of work challenging US imperialism, wars, and colonialism, while advocating for Black community control over every aspect of our lives. Upon the first year of launching the Black is Back electoral campaign school in 2017, the African People's Socialist Party ran 2 candidates on a reparations platform in St. Petersburg, Florida. Jesse Neville ran for mayor, and Akile Anayi for a city council seat. Although they did not win, their campaigns were so effective that they garnered international attention, thus launching the demand for reparations into the mainstream electoral arena in a way that had never happened before. In fact, in the very next presidential election after their campaign, 2020, Marianne Williamson made reparations a central theme of her campaign platform. We believe that the impact of the Black is Back electoral campaign school is one of the critical reasons that the US government has launched an assault on Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement as one of the scurrilous accusations levied against the Uhuru Three is interfering with elections. According to the Department of Justice, and we can't be held responsible for what they call themselves, right? According to the Department of Justice, quote, Russian Foreign Intelligence Service allegedly weaponized our First Amendment rights. Freedom Russia denies its own citizens. Just think about this. How do you weaponize free speech? By telling the truth. And it becomes a weapon against the oppressor, doesn't it? Against liars, doesn't it? The truth is a weapon against lies. So according to the Department of Justice, Russian Foreign Intelligence Services allegedly weaponized our First Amendment rights. Freedom Russia denies its own citizens to divide Americans and interfere in elections in the United States. So we're dividing America. If it weren't for us, it'd be a united America, right? I mean, we are dividing America, right? Not oppression, not colonialism, not poverty, not starvation, not mass imprisonment, not humiliation on a daily basis, not saying that our children we'll never be able to say that our children will have a normal life. No, we are the dividing America. That's what the Assistant Attorney General, Matthew G. Olson of the Justice Department National Security Division. The department will not hesitate, this is what they're saying, to expose and prosecute those who sow discord and corrupt US elections. I'm looking at somebody from Chicago, and they're talking about corrupt elections, where even dead people vote. You understand what I'm saying? Oh my goodness, isn't this something? I mean, this is incredible, isn't it? Nobody believes it, but it doesn't matter, they just got the guns. So it doesn't matter what you believe, and they got the guns and they think they have the brains of our people. And that's what we are challenging right now. So brothers and sisters, I'm going back to Lisa Davis. We can be so proud knowing that the work we are doing, talking about our coalition, is being heard and having a profound impact. We call on everyone to remain strong, undeterred, and stay the course of our resolute freedom fighters, such as Harriet Tubman, Marcus Garvey, Brother Malcolm, Dr. King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Brother Hewitt, and so many other heroes of the Black liberation struggle. Just as the US government has come after all of them, they are coming after our chairperson and the Uhuru movement, but we are not deterred, and we will win, unquote. So the Black is Back coalition has been the most important factor in the revival of the US front of the Black liberation movement. Today, our movement is stronger than ever, despite this latest desperate US government attempt to derail our struggle with false charges and arrests. Our power is in our success, in the ongoing war of ideas, and the relentless pursuit of the highest expression of democracy, which is nothing less than total self-determination. The highest expression of democracy, nothing less than total self-determination. It is this democracy that our oppressors feel more than anything. We say, it's this democracy, not guns, We didn't say they fear guns. We say it's this democracy that our oppressors fear more than anything. Forward to democracy, forward to African self-determination, forward to the August 12th and 13th, 14th annual national conference, and drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. We are winning. And I just wanted to say Uhuru and thank you. And I know I spoke a long time, but I hope we'll be able to move it forward. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Uhuru. Thank you so much, Brother Chairman, for your very, very powerful words. I was listening intently, as I always do. I'm just going to do a time check. I know we have Q&A. I just wanted to do a time check in terms of the Q&A. What's left for the Q&A?
Pull us on course. Make sure, I know I spoke a long time. So question and answer and all that, make sure we're back on course on time-wise.
Okay, and just for people who are in the Zoom room, could you please be sure to put your Q&A in the, if you have any questions, to put it in the Q&A section. That way we can better monitor it. If you put it in the chat, we don't always see it. And certainly if we have any people who are watching on the live streams, please put your Q&A in the comments. And I will just lead with this in terms of the things that you were saying, Brother Chairman. I want to remind our people that the same government that's going after you, the FBI and all of that, that's coming after you under the Biden administration, they protected Carolyn Bryant, who is the one who had Emmett Till murdered.
Yeah.
And ironically, and I'm certainly no fan of Trump, I can't stand, we never supported a Republican ever, but ironically, the DOJ reopened the investigation into Carolyn Bryant under Trump, and guess who closed it and said they can't find anything wrong with what she did? The Department of Justice under Biden. But in the meantime, going after you, they're going after Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, but they can't find anything wrong with Carolyn Bryant. And also just one other thing, the person who is conducting or prosecuting Trump right now, I forget her name, Black woman from Georgia. She don't want to prosecute a case in Georgia in which this brother, Rayshard Brooks, was murdered by the police. She basically said, she don't want to do that one. So just things that people should think about, you know, when they're talking about the Biden administration.
Sister Vice Chair, I just want to say that there's a movie I see being promoted. I don't know if it's Netflix or something else, called Till. It's on the story of Emmett Till. You know, Emmett Till was my age when they killed him. I was the same age as Emmett Till. I just want to say, I don't know what that movie is going to do. But I do know that that movie is not going to expose how Carolyn Bryant, you know, is walking away from this on the one hand, and then white people who support the struggle. And I'm talking in this instance about Jesse Neville and Penny Hess and the Uhuru Solidarity Forces, but we can go to Carolyn Buck and a lot of other, several other white people who actually tried to stand in solidarity with African people, what has happened to them. They won't make that kind of comparison, and they won't show that this thing with Carolyn Bryant, you know, it's just a continuation of how this system works against us. So, Uhuru. How are folk from Birmingham? I got to get out of the way. I see comment Sister Kinge. She's got a basket of pretty soft tomatoes over there. And,
Uhuru, open questions or comments from the panelists, or like I said, if anybody's in the Zoom room, please put your questions in the Q&A section.
No one else? No other questions?
Going once, going twice.
No question. Interesting.
Uhuru, this is Alikia. I'm reading some YouTube comments because we are live on YouTube as we are on Facebook. So I'm not seeing questions, but I'm seeing a lot of unity. We have someone named Rift Valley Informer who says this man, in reference to Chairman Omali Shatella, is another African Messiah, his words. And hopefully Black people would recognize him before it is too late, as it has always been. You have Aggressive by Design, who wants to recognize Uhuru African Independence Workforce Program Housing. This person was participating with us yesterday as well. We have New Africa saying Uhuru Chairman from colonial name St. Kitts and Nevis in the so-called West Indies. We have Uhuru from Kenya, the same person, Rift Valley Informer. So we're just getting a lot of salutes. Uhuru from Cape Town, Uhuru from Marion County, Georgia. As people are hearing this, if you do have questions, you can also put your questions in the chat on Zoom, on Facebook, or on YouTube. But we're getting a lot of salutations and more so expressions of unity and appreciation at this moment. Uhuru.
I should also say we're getting that in the chat as well. Let me just see. I think we got a Q&A in the question. Oh, this is from Brother Ikemba Ojori. He said, it appears that the answers to African problems have to fit within the rules of colonialism. Isn't this the real issue with the Uhuru 3 with this government?
Uhuru. Yeah, that's the problem. Comrade Ikemba is talking about how, everything we talk about, we have to fit it within the whole colonial construct, what we want, what we believe. And once you break out of that, that's the criminal act. In fact, that is true. And what we've come to understand is that in the final analysis, this whole issue of free speech, like we didn't build the party or the coalition to fight for free speech. We built the party and the coalition to fight for free Black people, to fight for freedom. And to make the struggle for freedom, then we have to have democratic space. So we say freedom of speech. We want to be able to say it. That's why we ran people for office. We didn't have schools. This coalition did not create a military school. It created an electoral school, how to run for office. And then what we did in running for office, we broke from the control of Biden and the Democratic parties and any of them and say, because they never put on the ballot the fact that the government steals our children on a regular basis, the so-called CPS program, kidnapping Black children. We can put that on the ballot now. We can do like Reverend Pinckney, who is here. If they don't do right by us, then we can use the ballot to have a recall. We can make them have to fight every inch just on democratic basis. They can't handle democracy. What's that movie? With Tom Cruise and this other guy, when they said, we just want the truth. And the guy said, you can't handle the truth. You can't, that's what they can't have. They can't handle the truth. So we're going to shove it down their throats. The truth is the truth. And that's what we're gonna roll it up. We're gonna roll it up like a burning spear newspaper and club them on the head. Truth, truth, truth. You understand? And then let them have to deal with that. Yeah, Reverend Pinckney. I want to just acknowledge the presence of members of the steering committee. Brother Reverend Pinckney. Ed Pinckney is here with his lovely wife. And Brother Cam Howard is in our presence here, a stalwart member of organizer for reparations, always on the front lines, not just around reparations question, but other righteous causes that we're involved in, especially in Chicago, but other places around the world. In fact, he jacked up the Pope. Cam Howard went to the Vatican and told the Pope to stand like this. And the Pope wanted to see if he had any nails in his hands, right? But anyway, he put the Pope on notice around reparations question. Got the Pope now scrambling to see how much of the stolen loot they're going to be able to give back. And then here's Zaki Baruti, the President General of the Universal African People's Organization, right here in St. Louis. And he's been kicking booty for 40 years, working for the liberation of 50 years. I was trying to give you a couple of. So these are representatives of the steering committee. I just want to acknowledge them. Reverend Pinckney, please.
The first thing I want to you're actually correct when you talk about they can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
You see, the truth kind of like, because we're not supposed to know the truth.
That's right.
You see, only truth that we're supposed to know is their truth. You see, if that's how they expect us to do. But here's something I want to say. The attack on us, when they attacked you, they attacked all of us. They used to use that term, buck breaking.
Yes.
You see,
yes, right.
and that's what they was targeting, buck breaking, because they think like this. Now, since they attacked the chairman, the leader, everybody else gonna run for cover.
Yeah.
You see, because that's how they look at things. But everybody started gravitating towards you.
Yeah.
Now they're a little bit confused. They don't know what to do, you know. But we got to keep that pressure on them.
Right.
If we don't keep the pressure on them and let them know that we're real, you know, we can neutralize it.
Right.
The only way you can fight, you can win if you fight.
Right.
And I believe in fighting back.
Right on.
I'm taking notes.
Charges now. Don't wait.
That's right.
Now. That's right.
Uhuru, Uhuru Chairman.
You learned a long time ago. Got a problem? Got a problem? Got a problem? Call Pinkman. The good Reverend. Uhuru.
Uhuru, I want to read a comment from New Africa, and I actually want to tell New Africa to stay tuned to the rest of this program and an upcoming program that we have from the Black is Back Coalition. But the comment says, Uhuru Chairman, can you comment on what's happening in Niger and how all the Africans all over the world can take advantage of this? And will Africa also have to do as Russia and China in the first steps to detach ourselves from colonialism?
Well, that's a big old question there. I just want to say Niger is Africa. And it is an entity that was created by white power. They carved up Africa into all of these entities, et cetera. And they shared it out among all the white states and things like that. And so France is the colonial master, has been the colonial master. We've fed France. From where you from, Comrade Secretary, from Haiti? Africans in Haiti built, it was our resource, built the Eiffel Tower. Did you know that? Yeah. It was the resource coming from Africa, directly, immediately from Africans in Haiti that France was stealing, that built this iconic Eiffel Tower. You see the sidewalk cafes and things like that in Paris, they have their origin in what's stolen from Africa, and France control of so much of Africa. Something like 14 different entities that they call states or countries in Africa controlled by France. That's what feeds the French. This whole notion of French culture, et cetera, French cuisine comes from that. And so Niger is one of those territories that France has controlled. And Africans have been trying to get rid of that for a long time. So France also imposed this neo-colonial. What we mean by neo-colonial is it's a white power in blackface. So they put black people in charge of us in France. So in Nigeria, all over Africa. And what has happened is that anytime somebody has tried to break free from that, they overthrow them and they kill them and do things like that. In Ivory Coast, for example, a few years ago, the France invaded, used airplanes and all kinds of stuff, and overthrew the government of Gbagbo and put in place Ouattara, who either was with either had worked for the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, one of them or another. He worked for white power. They put him in power, and they showed this humiliating pictures of President Gbagbo and in his bedroom. Understand, his wife sitting on the bed and what a French there, just doing this humiliating. And then they took him to Sweden. Is that where Hague is located? Right. Yeah, and they put him in Sweden, right? Where they put black people in white people's courtrooms and things like that. So they, but now what is happening is there's a growing kind of resistance. They killed Thomas Sankara from somebody say it, Burkina Faso. the land of upright men. That's what Sankara named the country, taking it from the name that had been imposed by the colonizers. They killed him. And so it's really interesting watching the brother who leads the military, that they said it was a coup against Bazoum, who was the previous president. But that was a coup against France. And that's something that must be understood. It was France that controlled that country. The United States has a military presence there of at least 1,100 and more people. There's the largest drone base in the world is located right there in Niger. So this is where they're sending all these drones, killing people, throughout Northern Africa and other places right there in Niger. Germany has a military, and France has a military presence. And so you see the masses, when the military had that coup against France, masses of African people, attacking the French embassy. They have joined now with masses in Mali, where France controlled, telling France, get the hell out. And they've been pushing like that in various other places. And various other places, people are rising up against French colonial president. Of course, there's something problematic there because they can see the French, but they don't necessarily see the Americans. Because America is not the one that directly controlled that situation in Niger. It was France who was bleeding us. And so you see the people are burning French flags and they're carrying Russian flags. And this is an issue that we have to deal with because Russia is not our liberator. We are our own liberators. We are our own liberators. And that's something that we have to be extremely clear about, building our own capacity to win our freedom. So we see that Russia and the United States, Russia, China, are in this contest with the United States. I was on a radio interview with comrades in Kenya just the other day, and they were talking about Chinese influence. And people recognize there's a difference in Russia and Chinese presence in Africa. A difference is that neither China nor Russia ever colonized Africa. And the fact is that I don't know any Africans with Russian last names. Right? The last names we got came from those who colonized us, right? And so that's not true. Russia never did that. Russia never enslaved us. And so African people have a different experience. Plus, Russia sent forces that fought and armed people, helped people fight against European colonialism. China supported the struggle against colonialism. So when when people looking, if they're limited imagination, not seeing a united Africa, not seeing Africa speaking for itself, so they look for perhaps another patron. They say we can unite with the Russians, we can unite with the Chinese. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but I am saying that the ultimate aim has to be we have to take our own power. Russia is not going to free us. Russia has its own interests. China has its own interests. And if those interests somehow coincide with what our interests have to be at any given moment, then we take advantage of that, but do not make the mistake of believing that you transfer your power, you're about to get your power back, and then you're going to transfer it and give it to somebody. No, no, no. They had the Russian flag. They were carrying the Russian flag. They were not carrying garbage flag. They were not having the red, black, and green. That's our flag. That's the one that they torched on July 2nd in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's the one that flies right outside this building now. The one that unites African people around the world, etc. So that's one aspect of it. I don't know if I spoke to the entire thing or not, but that's the key thing that we have to recognize. And Russia and China do represent a serious contradiction for the existing social order. They are fighting to re-enter history in a certain way, but they want to re-enter history on the same platform of the colonial mode of production. So that challenges, that fractures things, that contributes to confusion and consternation by the ones who dominate our lives, et cetera. So what we do is recognize that and say, this is how we have to move, given these contradictions, and take advantage of having our own strategy. What is our strategy? The African Socialist International that unites all African people around the world in pursuit of the absolute total liberation of Africa and unification of African people globally. That's our pursuit. And so we can make decisions on any relationship we want to in the world based on the fact this is where we are going, right? That's how you in Chicago, New York, I don't know about how the bus system works here, Westbrook, but You get a bus, you're going someplace, and sometimes you have to get transfers, don't you? You get transfers, you get off this bus here, but you know where you're going, right? And you got a transfer, you know, if you get off here, you can catch another bus to go to the designation that you want. That's what we have to be clear on. That makes sense, Clint? All right.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. I just want to, excuse me, I just want to tell everyone to stay tuned to the, to the remaining portion of this program, because we do have a panel with brief discussions on what's going on the continent of Africa, speaking to Mali and Niger.
Yeah.
And also, we will be having a dedicated webinar at the beginning of September. Announcements will go out right after this conference so that people can tune into a longer discussion. So, thank you, Chairman.
And I just also wanted to just tag on to what Sister Eliki was just saying, because I'm sure people want to know what's currently going on with the Uhuru 3, as Brother Dawood just asked. But we will be hearing a presentation from one of our comrades from the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition later on in this, later on in our conference today. So I just want to make people aware of that. So we will be dealing with that when
Can we ask people in the comment section? Our objective was to make sure that everybody in the coalition and to share it as widely as possible. The indictment itself that came from the government, and then the brief that we filed telling them to dismiss the charges. We filed a brief, our lawyer filed a brief. I think everybody should read that. Everybody should read it, because the thing is that the brief shows just how clearly the thing is a fabrication. It's all an attack on our right to say what we say. And so please read that brief. And if you haven't seen the brief, put something in the comments, say, send it here, etc. And so that has happened. And then the state has responded to our brief, saying that the charges should not be dismissed. And this is why they said it should not be dismissed. And then we respond to that. These are very short pieces. They're easy to read, more or less. And you should, we want everybody to be informed. We want you to see what they said, see what they said, see what we said, and then you can come to some kind of judgments on your own instead of having to try to read it in some local newspaper. So that helps us to understand a little bit more, I think, about the Uhuru 3 comment, Dawood. Uhuru.
Well, Brother Chairman, thank you so much. I think we're at that point where we need to move the agenda, but thank you. Thank you so very, very much. Next, like I said before, that this is not going to be the way that we usually do the presentations and the conference. And normally when we have these presentations, we like to give the working group chairs or the members of the working groups 15 minutes to present about their work, and also various members, various organizations of the coalition to also do presentations about 15 minutes about their work. But this time we're not going to be able to do it like that. And we just ask our coalition members to please understand, but we are going to hear from our Secretary General again, Sister Elikia, who's going to talk about the overall work of the coalition this year so far. So she will probably address some of the work that the working groups have been doing too, if they presented their information to her in time. Sister Elikia, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Sister Vice Chair Lisa. So what I'm going to be doing is a review of the work of the Black is Back Coalition between August 2022 and now August 2023. This is, and as well as the work of organizations of the coalition. This does not represent all of the work of the organization or all of the work of the organizations of the coalition or all of the organizations of the coalition either. There's a lot of great work being done by this coalition, and I'm going to be as expeditious as possible. It is a lot because we do a lot. Next slide. Thank you. So we began at our last conference, our last annual conference, which was the 13th annual conference, titled Concerning Violence, Political Prisoners, and Guns, Black Community Control of the Police, based in St. Louis, Missouri. Next slide. We won't have time to get into too much detail with anything. In September of 2022, the Black is Back Coalition sponsored 2 Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa themed events. On the 20th, there was the HOA event at Repal in Newark, New Jersey. And then the Harlem Anti-War Coalition, which is represented by Sister Nellie Bailey, hosted an event titled Stop the Repression Against the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement. And it was held at the People's Forum in New York, New York. Next slide. So we went on November for our 14th annual Black People's March on the White House, carrying the theme from our 13th annual conference, which was concerning violence, political power and guns, Black community control of the police. And that was November 4th through 6th. So just a brief report on, that weekend's participation. We had 40 attendees at the pre-rally rally on Friday, over 200 participants at the march and rallies on Saturday, over 30 people in person at the conference, and over 66 people participating with us virtually. So that was a good turnout. And we had 5 organizations who participated with us for the first time at this, because we always invite other organizations. For the first time, we had Anigbayan USA, the International Women's Alliance, the Boricua Independence Front, the Black National Emergency Response, and the Socialist Unity Party / Harriet Tubman Center. So we hope to see their participation and other new organizations' participation as well, in addition to regular organizations that participate regularly. Next slide. In January of this year, we had our 2022 year in review titled FBI Attacks Because Black is Back. It was a review of the work of the coalition throughout from January 2022 to January 2023. With the annual conference, we do August to August. And then from the 14th to 16th, we had the Protest the State MLK weekend. Again, pushing forward, Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa. We participated in actions to draw a direct connection to the history of the state attacks on our revolutionary figures, such as Dr. King, with the present day state attacks on the Uhuru movement and African liberation movement. Next slide. So in February of 2023, on the 12th, we had we were asked to sponsor an event that was being held on the 12th. The U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee sought an endorsement from the Black is Back Coalition for an event held in California. And then on the 18th, we had 2 events. One was our own webinar, FBI Attacks Because Black is Back, History of FBI Attacks on the Black Liberation Movement webinar, which is available on the Black is Back Coalition YouTube channel for review. And also we participated in an anti-war demonstration at the Lincoln Memorial. You can see Vice Chair Lisa Davis in one of the photos there. Next slide. March, we had our general membership meeting, which is a quarterly membership meeting. These are not webinars, these are not live streams, that allow for our individual members to be closer to the steering committee of the organization, as well as each other. They share, what campaigns and what work they are involved in on the ground with each other. They get each other's contacts. And on the 18th, we also participated at the Answer Coalition's anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. You can see a picture of Chairman Amali Shatella, who made a dynamic presentation, a speech at this rally as well, hosted by the Answer Coalition. Next slide. March continued. We endorsed the campaign for Carla Coffey Wright for St. Louis, Missouri, Ward 11 Alderwoman. Sister Carla Coffey has been participating with the Black is Back at our electoral campaign schools, I believe, since the first or second one. based in St. Louis, Missouri, connected to the Universal African Peoples Organization. And she unites with the 19-point platform completely and is a strong supporter of the Black is Back coalition. So it was our duty to, to give an official endorsement of her campaign. Next slide. Of course, we had the 7th Electoral Campaign School in St. Petersburg, Florida, titled The Ballot and the Bullet, Anti-Colonialist Struggle for Democracy. Guests include, Charles Barron and Black is Back Steering Committee members. Next slide. In May, the Black is Back on the 14th, the Black is Back Coalition participated in the Black Mothers March on the White House, hosted by Operation Stop CPS, which is an organizational member of the Black is Back. And on the 27th, participated in the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa International Day of Action. Next slide. June, we had another general membership meeting on the 15th, and on the 24th, we had a webinar titled "The Message is Still the Same, Drop the Charges, Defend the Right to Free Speech," a discussion on Chairman Omali Yeshitela's 2007 presentation in Huelva, Spain. Next slide. I do want to say that all the presentations from our events and conferences do get uploaded to the Black is Back Coalition YouTube channel as podcasts. They're organized in the, each presentation is isolated, but they're organized in the order of the conference. So if you miss them, you know where to go, and they're up, so you can just always listen to them. Next slide. August, yesterday, we participated, we attended the Black Power Blueprints Mafundi Lake fourplex dedication ceremony. And then, of course, on the 20th, we are in our 14th annual national conference taking place in St. Louis, Missouri. Next slide. So this is work done by organizations and working group of the Black is Back Coalition between August 2022 and August 2023. Next slide. So with the African People's Socialist Party, which is represented by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Next slide. We have the main campaign of the African People's Socialist Party has been the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, Stop FBI Attacks on the African People's Socialist Party. If you guys remember, on July 29th, 2022, actually very close to when we're going to have our 13th annual conference, the United States government and FBI made its attack on the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement institutions and leaders. So our conference, took a different look because it was the first, event right after. And the African People's Socialist Party took on building the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa mass defense campaign, which has been the main organizational campaign of the party since. Next slide. So on August 9th, which is right after our conference, the party held Long Live Mike Brown, From Protest to Black Power. And if you can see, even in this graphic, you can see the screenshot of the press conference that was held right after the attacks that I just mentioned. And you can see Black is Back Steering Committee members in support figured there. So this was August 9th, which is the date of the police murder of Mike Brown. Next slide. So now we're in August. This is where the African People's Socialist Party builds the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa mass defense campaign. Next slide. So just some, some things, not all things. In September 2022, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement held a series of Day of Reparations to African People events in multiple cities, while also pushing forward the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa demand and mass defense campaign. That was in September. And in yesterday's, conference, the chairman said for the first time, the United States government and FBI, while making their attack on the African liberation movement, which they've done historically, for the first time, they also had to go into the white communities and make an attack there because of the way the African People's Socialist Party has answered the question of white people and white solidarity to the African Revolution. Next slide. Again, this is November 20th to 29th and 30th. Under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement held its 4th annual Giving Tuesday 24-hour reparations telethon, where USM raised over $100,000 in reparations to African people as a stance of material solidarity with the African Revolution. Next slide. So January 2023, the African People's Socialist Party held a 2022 year in review webinar themed Relentless. Next slide. The Hands Off Uhuru, this is February. We're just going one per month at this point. The Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa held the Day of the African Martyr, a discussion with Chairman Omali Ishatella, which featured Black Liberation Army political prisoner Jalil Mutakim, Luezi Kinshasa, Secretary General of the African Socialist International, and Tafari Mugeri, who is the chair of the African People's Socialist Party in occupied Azania, known by its colonial name to many as South Africa. Next slide. Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa in March on the 12th held the Meet the Uhuru Legal Team, a special event and fundraiser for the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Legal Defense Fund, and on the 31st held a teach-in, How Regions Bank Profits from the Oppression of Black People. Next slide. In June, there was a webinar and mass meeting titled Born of Resistance, Fighting for African People to be Free, Drop the Charges Against the Uhuru 3, which featured Mike Africa Jr., who the chairman made reference to just earlier today from the MOVE organization, as well as Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. From the Prisoners of Conscience Committee and the Black Panther Party Cubs. Next slide. In July, the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, campaign built the the campaign to build the anti-colonial free speech movement, and created a wonderful coalition that the Black is Back Coalition is a part of. That coalition, and organizations of the Black is Back Coalition is also a part of that coalition as well. The Fight Back Coalition is an anti-colonial free speech movement. Next slide. So now we are at the Universal African Peoples Organization, which is represented by Zaki Burudi, who is the President General. Next slide, please. So going to September 2022, which was Zaki Burudi's 75th birthday. So UAPO and Zaki Burudi, being the spiritual man that he is, they went atop, they held a special prayer, but you could say it's a revolutionary type of prayer, because it was a prayer on behalf of, Black people, and calling for the end of oppression, death, destruction, and mayhem in our communities. Next slide. On October 6th and December 28th, the Universal African Peoples Organization had a campaign to purchase and deliver 2,000 cases of water to Jackson, Mississippi residents. Next slide. On October 15th, a delegation of UAPO members and supporters attended a forum focused on independent Black politics and the development of an independent Black political party. This event was held in Galveston, Texas, and was sponsored by the LOC of Greensville, and it was led by Brother Kareem Muhammad. Next slide. October 23rd, UAPO, the women wing of the UAPO, the Universal African Women Union, led by its co-founder, Sophia, held a program commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Million Woman March. It was a well-attended program held at Union Avenue Christian Church. Next slide. The UAPO attended the 14th annual Black People's March on the White House, hosted by the Black is Back Coalition. And after the November 6th, March on the White House, UAPO Baltimore Representative Bill Gooden sponsored a reception for the delegation. In attendance was progressive activists and the former mayor of Baltimore, Catherine Pugh. Next slide. In November, November 28th, UAPO donated hundreds of gloves, socks, skull caps to the students at Dunbar Elementary School in St. Louis. UAPO adopted the school at the beginning of each school year and it makes different kinds of donations to help the students who lived in impoverished, excuse me for the typo, community. Next slide. UAPL stands in support of Kim Gardner. UAPL members in attendance to the first court hearing impacting St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner on April 2nd, 2023. Next slide. UAPL on April 2nd also held its 34th annual celebration of the founding of their organization, and also it's in line with the commemoration of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This program was held at Legacy Books and Cafe in St. Louis, and the actual date of UAPL's founding is April 4th, 1989. Next slide. And we're in May now. UAPL supports the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. It sponsored a teach-in themed why the bogus charges against the Uhuru 3 should be dropped. Local activists made powerful presentations in support of the Uhuru 3. This event was held at the beloved Community United Methodist Church. Next slide. UAPL's 34th annual celebration of the life and legacy of Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz. The theme was the struggle for social justice reform of the criminal judicial system continues. The event was held at the beloved Community United Methodist Church. Along with the speakers, they had great poetry by Sisters of the Movement. So now we are at the Joko Collective, which is represented by Tasha Thomas, Sister Tasha Thomas, Brother Yusuf Dusay, and Jamila Feemster. So the theme for the Joko Collective this year was creating the world we want in media and the arts and special programming. So what the Joko Collective often does is they have a theme for the year, and all of their programs follow, the theme for that year. Next slide. So on August 20th, 2022, they held an event or a study titled Counterinsurgency, the U.S. Attack on Black Liberation Work and Workers, with James Simmons, who is a professor of Africana Studies. Next slide. Excuse me. Between September 10th and October 8th, 2022, there was a series titled Sex and Society, the Economy of Pleasure, where they had chats about sex and sales, selling sex, and the argument for bringing sex work in from the code. The question that they're getting at is, does decriminalizing prostitution make our communities more or less secure? Next slide. In November, they launched a 3-part series titled White Right Terrorism, What We Need to Know Now. It was a conversation with James Simmons on the history and present dangers of white terrorism perpetrated against Black communities and individuals. Next slide. In February of this year, they had the attack on APSP, What We Need to Know Now, a discussion with Omali Ishitela, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and Mwezi Odom, the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Counteroffensive, and James Simmons, a professor of Africana Studies. Next slide. Continue with media in the world we want. They had an event with People's journalist Tandisizwe Chimarenga. Next slide. I tried. And on June, they had a conversation with Dr. Jared Ball, the myth and propaganda of Black buying power, media, race, economics. Next slide. So in July, they had a conversation with Akile Naid, the director of African People's Socialist Party's Department of Agitation and Propaganda, continuing the theme, media in the world we want. Next slide. And we did get some other reports in, not necessarily in time for this, and we're also at time for this, but we do want I do want to say that, throughout the year, what you will find within the coalition is that the organizations support one another. Sister Betty Davis and Brother Ralph, they have the What's Happening with Ralph Pointer talk show where, the chairman might be a guest, or Sister Belinda Parker Brown from LUI might be a guest. As we can see, Joko has had Hands Off Uhuru as a guest. The Hands Off Uhuru has Sister Belinda Parker Brown and Betty Davis and Ralph. So there is an intermingling that takes place amongst organizations of the coalition. Ajamu has joined us for today's webinar, and Black Alliance for Peace has published, whether it's the call for this conference is. So this is what the Black is Back Coalition is and what it represents. And again, this was just a brief, like a synopsis of the work of the coalition and work of organizations of the coalition. And if you are a Black organization, like I said earlier, and you can unite with our principles of unity, you can unite with our 19-point national Black political agenda for self-determination platform, visit blackisbackcoalition.org. This is the Black is Back Coalition, and this is the work that we do. Thank you. Uhuru.
Uhuru, and thank you so very, very much for that presentation. As you can tell, we are about study and boots on the ground. That's what we do. And please, everybody should want to join this coalition if you are a Black organization and you believe in the liberation of African people. Next, we are going to have a report, a financial report from our everything person, Sister Ikenge Mayele. She does so much behind the scenes. She makes this go more than people might even realize, and we just appreciate her so much in everything that she does. Uhuru.
Black is back.
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 Uhuru. Just a second here. This has been an outstanding conference thus far. I really just want to salute everyone that is here and everyone that's watching online. And while I'm preparing this, after this, everyone's going to get the opportunity to be able to participate in this process. So get ready.
Uhuru, we just need the camera for Akwaaba Hall to be visible to us again, please.
Working on it.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Also, just to give people an idea for the rest of the schedule, I see Brother Ralph was asking about lunch break. I know that we're going to be having this financial report and then a call for resources, and then lunch will be coming after that.
Yes, that is correct.
Here we just have a little technical difficulty that we're working on.
Can we begin the report while they're working on it?
Yes, just to say that I am proud to announce that again this year, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations is in the black.
Yes.
That this year we raised a total of $8,931.99. And that is coming out of our annual conference of last year, where we raised $3,351. In November, we raised just shy of $2,100. We were short of covering our expenses for our November 2022 conference. However, it did not put us in the red. We remained in the black. We just were short of raising all of the resources in order to be able to cover that particular November mobilization. Because as you know, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations holds annually 4 major events per year. Our January year in review event, we raised $1,755.90. Our April conference, which is the electoral campaign school, this year was held in St. Petersburg, Florida. We raised $2,890. A special conference that we had in June, we raised $935. Again, as I said, our total raise for the year was $8,931.99. We are again and still remaining in the black as the Black is Back Coalition. So it's going to be important that this particular conference, as well as conferences moving forward as we lead up to our November mobilization, that we make sure that we get our membership dues in for those that are online. This is our annual conference, so you know this is the time to renew your memberships. So we're asking everyone to make sure that they do that. And I want to appreciate those that have made donations thus far already for this conference that are not necessarily members, but donations have already come in. And at this point, we've raised $105. But again, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations is in the black with a current balance $3,754.63. We have met all of our financial obligations for the entire year.
Uhuru. And speaking of being in the black and operating in the black, because that's the only way to operate in the black, we're about to get blacker right now as we go to the call for membership and resources. All right. Woo-woo. Who wants to be brave enough to help me with this?
Yes, I will. I will.
Yeah. And don't we also have Pinkney in the room, right? He's still there, right?
Pinkney is here.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you can
I'll
count
come in
on
with
me.
announcements. I will get, but
Yeah,
yeah, you got
absolutely. All right, now let's get these donations going. Let's make it happen. I know you can do it, so we're gonna do it. I'm gonna start it off with $200. And it's legitimate. It will not bounce. I can tell you.
Pastor Pinkney.
Yes, I am starting it off with a $200 check. And look, well, you know, I got my good friend Ralph. I got Betty. I got Belinda Parker Brown. I got folks who actually want to do something, and I'm just so proud. I know I don't call Ralph as much as I should because I'm really so busy. But Ralph, Betty, I'm putting up 200, and you know, if I can put up 200, anybody can put up 200.
We got your back, Reverend.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you get money. And those who own land, you may not know me, but I still love you.
Okay.
We are in a war, and we need everybody to help to provide at least something. Do what you can. Make sure that we give something. That way we all be taking part of this war. This is not a conflict. This is the real deal. So we need to make sure we're stepping to the plate and doing all the things that we need to do to make this thing happen. Because I tell you, the power, one of the most powerful individuals I know. I don't know anybody more powerful than you, and I support you 100%. And because I support you 100%, I'm gonna give another 100. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give another 100 because that's my man.
For all the freedom-loving people.
Hey, Belinda Parker Brown, you know.
You're muted. You got, ooh, he just blew out the sound.
We
He
have,
sure
we have a-
did, Lisa. He is powerful.
Yeah. We got to get that sound back.
We have a $60 pledge from Sister Belinda Parker Brown. Thank you. We
Yes, yes.
All right, Belinda Parker Brown.
Who's pledging $100, and she is one of our presenters later today. Thank you, Mwezi Odom. I am dropping the links on Facebook and YouTube where people can, as well as on Zoom, where people can make your pledge or your donation at blackisbackcoalition.org. Go ahead, Reverend Pinckney. Go ahead.
All right, those who are online who can't see me and want to see me, I'm asking you to give a donation right now. I don't care whether it's $50, $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever you can afford to give, because we're pushing this thing. We want to make sure that we have the resources to do the things that need to be done to help this community. Because that's some of the things that we don't really participate. Every organization usually don't have the resources. That's why it's hard for us to fight. So those of you out there, those of you online that's hearing my voice, talk to me. Talk to me. Tell me what you're going to do. I'm here for you. I'm here. I'm here. And look, I tell you what, if we can raise $300 more real fast online, I'll give another 100.
And also, if you don't have it right now, you can pledge it, and you can do it in installments. And I also just want to say that another thing that makes organizations work is we need people, we need membership. That is so important. We can't do it without each other.
There you go. There you go. You heard that. My good friend Jesse here said he's pledging $25.
25 more, Reverend, just hit me with the spirit.
See, that's the kind of talk I want to hear. You online, I know you can't hear me right now real good, because I'm telling you, we bringing it on home. Right. Do something for us right now. Get them checkbooks out. You got it? All right. All right. Let's say the people that's in the hall right now. Let's talk to you guys. Dig deep. $50. I got you. Who? 50? 60. 100. Shut your mouth. Let's keep it moving. 100. Come on. 100.
Reverend Pinckney, I'm gonna come in for a little bit.
I'm trying to get all this money together right now.
No, I got some good news. I'm coming with good news.
Okay. All right, come on, let's keep it moving.
We got Janice Camp with $50 that just came in online. Thank you very much. $50 from Maureen Wagner. Thank you very much. We have $50 from Lisa Watson. Thank you very much. We have Lynn Demmer, who just made a $30 contribution. Thank you. And I want to say that Sister Betty and Ralph, or Brother Ralph, commented that Sister Betty and Ralph each are doing the $200. So thank you.
Shut your mouth, Ralph.
For that.
Ralph, Betty, y'all know I love y'all. I do. Hey, let's keep it moving online. Online, you got another $150. I'm giving another $100. Go ahead. People online. Another 25 for this. Oh, Jesse, you're trying to make me cry.
Oh, man, I don't want you to cry.
All right, listen. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Oh man, tears is rolling.
We got $100 from Ajamu Baraka.
And look, and the good news, we're not taking no prisoners because we can't afford to feed them. That's how the problem is. All right, so everybody who make their pledge real fast, is there anybody else?
Yes, we have
here's another 50. All right. Well, okay. Can I get a person to work this money real fast?
We got a Kinge on it on the ground. Online, we have $100 from Brother Ajamu Baraka and the Black Alliance for Peace.
Okay, one more. You get it. Another 100. Another 100. Another 100. That's, here we go. You better get this before I change my mind. Hurry up.
Do we also have memberships? People want, I know people want to become a member of the Black is Back Coalition. You can become an organizational member. Do we have that information about the, what it's
Yes,
called?
next, go a few slides, please. The person on the,
Yeah.
on the, like, go like 5 or 6 more slides. Right. Next one. There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Individual memberships, $25. Organizational, if you're international, it's $200. If you're national, it's $150. And if you're state, local, or provincial, it's $50. And like I said, we are going to be as good as we are when we come together. And we need people. We are each other's. We are each other's liberators. And it's about people. We need people standing in
There you go.
the ground.
All right. What you said 100?
150 for UAPO national.
Oh, the national?
Dues.
Okay, national dues. Okay.
Is that UAPO?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to make a rectification. So Brother Jamu said that he's making 100 for himself, and Black Alliance for Peace will send another $150. So salute.
Oh, we talking today.
Yeah.
All right.
We talking today.
Here's a $120 donation from Carolyn Lake.
Okay.
At the Emiri Baraka level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's here from Carolyn Lake, $120. And I'm making a $200 donation.
Sounds good. Hey, is there anybody in here I missed? Anybody? Raise your right hand. Left. Both hands. Raise both hands. Because it's going down.
Raise them hands, raise them.
Oh, it's going down. I gotta tell you guys, I'm here today. My wife, she's going to have surgery tomorrow morning, on her eye, and I'm we got to get back. I got a court hearing tomorrow morning too. So, as always, a court hearing is always something. So you got to get yourself prepared mentally to deal with these people, and that way you can defeat them. You can't defeat them unless you get yourself ready mentally and fight back. But I'm excited. Let me talk to the people online just for a second, because Green Party. Well, thank you there. All right. The people that's online today, I want to thank y'all for your donations. If you can find in your heart to just donate $25 more each person that have donated, I would really appreciate it, because we need the resources to fight this war. This is no conflict. Everything they said Black folks do is a conflict. Everything they do is a war on drugs, but so we gotta make sure we're doing all the things we need to do. People, hold on, Jesse. Another 25 from Jesse. Let's. Yeah, I like I tell them. Yeah, this is no conflict. This is the real deal. Yeah. You know what? I'm excited today, to see all you guys here. I mean, I'm really real. I mean, we got to understand what we up against. Yeah. Because if we can understand what we up against, we can win the war. You see, a lot of times people don't understand what they're up against. And I'm telling you, we're here to fight. Those online, did I get anything online yet?
Yes, we have a $100 donation from Larry Wells, who is a member of the Black is Back Coalition, which includes him renewing. So you can say a renewal plus another amount being donated. So thank you very much.
Very good.
We have Raya, Comrade Raya with a $50 contribution. the Uhuru Solidarity Movement has made a $100 contribution. I
All
see
right.
Matum, I haven't seen the payment, but I've seen the attempt for $50. Just give it a few minutes, it should come through. We have many, and we do have to move, but myself and the logistics coordinator at Kinge Wu will be, speaking to align what I have online, what she has on the ground, so that we can come with a report. I do feel confident that if we have not met our goal, we're right beneath it, but I'm pretty sure that we will meet and surpass it by the time this day is over. They're coming in quickly, so we will just Matum, the contribution just came through, so you're good.
Very good. I'm going to sign
we'll
off,
come
but
back with
that
an
don't
update.
mean you stop donating. Matter of fact, I'm going to be leaving shortly, but that do not mean you don't stop, because you have all day, and then you got next week to make a pledge, and you can send it in whenever you have it.
Right.
So who said that?
No, I was just going to say to the tech people, if we could just go back to the slide with the working groups, because also people can just know when they become a member of the Black is Back Coalition, the working groups they can join, and also know this, like whatever organization that you're with, if you are a Black organization dedicated to the African liberation struggle, whatever work that you do, please, if you see that for some reason we're not necessarily covering something that you think needs to be covered, you can let us know. Let us know and say, this is what I think, and this is what I would like to bring to the table. And the same way with the working groups. We are what we will make ourselves become. And we know that there are so many people in our community, so many issues, and we want to be there for each other. So please, also there's a lot of people with tech knowledge that we really need, like making videos, working on the website. Any interest that you have, we could utilize. And even if you might not have any skills that you might think that we need, but we need you. We need them. We need them. Just come. Just come. Just come.
So we do have to move, unless I'm being, I am told otherwise, but I know that on our schedule, we are scheduled for a break in 3 minutes. Yes, an important break. So I don't know if can I call Kinge Maele to the front and just let people know how we're moving on the ground in in the Akwaaba Hall, and then online we can get that instruction from our Zoom engineers as well, how we're moving with Zoom.
Yes.
I just want to appreciate everyone that has given. It's not too late. You've still got a few more hours in the programming. So if you haven't become a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, go to blackisbackcoalition.org/donate. There'll be a little tab where you can join as an individual member, or you can join as an organization. I want to salute my comrades everyone that is online. Thank you, Sister Alikia, Sister Lisa, for moving this process forward. We're getting set up for lunch here, which will be happening in just a few minutes. If you can give us about 5 or 10 minutes to make sure everything is ready to go, we'll be ready to go, and you can join us back in an hour. But do not forget to give. What time is it now, please?
It's 12:30 over there, 1:30 Eastern.
It's 12:30. We will resume our live programming at 1:30.
Okay, so 2:30 Eastern for those on the East Coast.
Right. And
yes.
Also, let me just also say, for those of you who are maybe just tuning in and you didn't see yesterday, please go back and watch what happened yesterday. Go to the you can watch it on the Black is Back Facebook page. I know it was live streamed from there, but also there is the Black Power Blueprint, because the first part of the program, we were in Akwaaba Hall, and Black is Back was talking, and we were live streaming, and we were supporting the Black Power Blueprint. But then the second part of the program was a live stream from the Black Power Blueprint, and you need to be following the Black Power Blueprint anyway. And again, I just have to say, I didn't even say it yet, but I'm gonna say it now. The Black is Back Coalition definitely also wants to recognize Deputy Chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Ona Zene Yeshatela. And I know that she is one of the powerhouses behind the Black Power Blueprint. We want to say we thank you so much. I know sometimes she doesn't always like to say things in front, but you will hear a lot of what she spoke yesterday. And certainly if she just wants to say a few words now, she's more than welcome to, but we just want to let you know we recognize you and we appreciate you so much. Guru.
Chair, I know we had to adjust the agenda. I'm not sure how we are looking in terms of, I know Comrade Cam Howard is flying out. Are we okay in terms of being able to accommodate that?
Can you say something, Alikia? Uhuru, programmer, Alikia, what time is Brother Cam supposed to go up?
So Brother Cam, we moved them up to 225 Central.
Okay.
Okay.
225.
Okay, we're
All
good.
right.
All right.
So what we can do when we come back, we can have him go first and then,
Okay.
or no, it's 12 for you.
No, we'll be okay if we're going, if lunch is an hour. It is 12:30 here now. At 1:30, we resume. So if he's supposed to go on at 2:25, we're good, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And we will make it happen. We will make it happen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. So on the East Coast, be back by, what is it, 2:30 on the Central Time, be back by.
No, 2:30 on the East Coast.
Yeah, 2:30 on the East Coast. And it's 1:30 if people are on Central Time, correct? Guru.